activities for today. In the first place, I'd like to greet you all, each one of you. Obviously, we're grateful to Pax Christi International for this initiative, and to all the other organizations and entities that are part of this network, international network, with people and organizations that are concerned and worried about extractivism and human rights violations in the rights of nature. It is a very special day today because on the 22nd, we celebrate at the world level the International Day Against Mega Mining. This voracious mining that in the last decades has taken all its voracity and destruction and pollution of territories in towns and communities, etc., presenting themselves as an alternative for an exit, a way out of poverty, and as a road towards development. So reflecting upon how this extractivism is going against human rights and rights of living and entities that all together form what we call nature. And this is something that is really important. So we're going to start with a video that is going to give us some context for today's Reflection Day. Now, open field mines. Stop. The rivers and the soil are dying. Stop now. It is urgent. There is no time. Our poles are melting. They come here to Argentina and they pollute. We're not going to be quiet. We are promoting solidarity awareness. Buenos Aires, listen to our brothers. Raise your hand. And it is the law that is never wrong, that nature cannot be touched. Stop now. Water and life are non-negotiable. Stop now. The tree is dying. Stop now. We don't want more waste. It's urgent. We have no more time. Córdoba, San Juan, water. Water is not for sale. Argentine. We don't have uranium cyanide pollution, radioactive pollution, cancer. National law prohibiting mega mining. Stop. Life is our right. Stop now. We are only one under the sky. It is urgent. There's no more time. The earth is suffering. Stop now. All these open field mines. River and the soil are dying. Stop now. It is urgent. There is no more time. We are only one under the sky. Stop now. Stop now. Good morning to all of you. As the sun says in our tide, we are only one under the sky. And with that reflection, that does not only apply to Argentina, but to the, the South, the global South countries, where most of the minds that have appeared become very appealing to the global North. Today, we started a third session of webinars. I would like to remind you, welcome you all, Christi International. It's with our work group on extractivism, and you have seen the logos, the networks and communities that are accompanying us here today. And we propose this webinar cycle, Tejiendo Esperanza, gaining hope in transition times to living in harmony, with three main objectives: give visibility, the voices of communities that accompany the conform the task group, the challenges, their success stories in the analysis of mega mining from a focus on peace building. The second one is to strengthen analysis and the tools for the defense of territory. And the third one is to promote activities of solidarity towards communities that are affected by extractivism, and to promote advocacy with co-parts and allies in Europe and the United States. For this third session, we have chosen the topic of extractivism and the violation of human rights and nature. We are going to analyze the situation of human rights violation and nature, and some legal mechanisms for the defense of territories from those two specific cases, human rights, giving visibility to the demands from communities that are being vulnerated, and also by resistance processes, that non-violent resistance for this extractivist model. And finally, we're going to be analyzing the regulatory frameworks for the protection of human rights and non-human, which are the rights of nature. My name is Romero Medina, and I'm a General Secretary of Christi International. And we thank all of the people here today, and Pedro, who is our Master of Ceremonies today, one of the most important people in the network of churches and mining, accompanying us from Ecuador today. Just to remind you that in our last webinar, we analyzed certain key topics regarding the model that generates violences and inequities. So we're not only talking about a transition, but we're talking about a depossession in some cases. So the second thing that we need to keep in mind is that any answer also implies a cultural transformation from peace building, with a focus on nonviolence and active nonviolence, to understand how to deal with this topic, but also to change our cultures, our customs in the consumption and in the vision that we have of the world, to continue building this sense of community from resilience and from caregiving and exchange. Very important to have the role of women and young people to live in harmony. It also implies living in equality. And finally, we reflected upon how this global community, has to express solidarity, but also the sense of co-responsibility. And co-responsibility means knowing and using legal mechanisms at the national level, but also at the global level. And that in this co-responsibility and solidarity with the global North, some people are joining us today from the global North. We need to make use of those defense mechanisms, have advocacy and influence those decision makers in the global North, and of course in our own countries. This takes us to another topic, and this is the collective actions. They have to be present in everything we do. That's something that we've been doing for 12 years in the programs that we have in the Latin America, among violence and hope. And now we're going to continue doing this in our new phases that we are designing with our co-parts and our allied organizations. And we aspire that it's going to be a 5-year plan to really accompany this in a sustainable manner. And the last concept that we would like to work that we worked in the last webinar was eco-spirituality, how to generate hope, how to contribute to the growth and building of peace and hope. because our peoples and our countries are not poor. How can we change the concept of this concept of poverty and wealth to really live in harmony? And we concluded that we are communities that have resurrected, that we are living. And with those reflections, I'd like to welcome and continue with this today in this new conversation. Thank you, Inés, for this introduction that gives us a context for what we're doing at the moment on our conversation. There are some data that are really a matter of concern, which give like a little bit of what was mentioned in the song, stop mining, stop extractivism. And this because sometimes when we are away from the affected zones by extractivism, sometimes we don't feel it, and we feel that it is not our problem. There are two data that I'd like to share with you. In Peru, over 10 million people have toxic metals in their blood as a result of extractivism. 10 million is 1/3 of the whole population in Peru. And this is just it's not something that Pax Christi, information from Pax Christi, is information from the Ministry of Health in Peru, which means that eventually there should be more people, because official data sometimes hide the realities that are being experienced in the field. And the second data that I'd like to share before the presenters tell us more about this, is that in the Amazon, this beautiful, this wealth, this natural wealth that we have, the world has, and that America has, the Amazon does not have one river today that is not polluted with toxic waste, amongst them oil and minerals. And obviously the agrotoxics. There is not only one river in the Amazon. For those rivers that before there was water running, now there is poison running. And this is producing an ecocide. And practically, it's a homicide of the people. So this is why it is important to listen to the voices of the people from the resistance. Today, we're going to start with Lucía Barbosa. She is the part of the collective Hilos del Río in Mocoa, Putumayo, in the south of Colombia. And she's going to be telling us the case of resistance regarding mining, to be able to understand why the peoples are complaining against extractivists. So, Lucia, if you can please go ahead. The floor is yours. Lucia, you have to activate turn on your microphone. While Lucia solves this issue, just a little bit of context. Hilos de Vida has been working with civil society and churches in defending a region that is highly rich in natural resources, and performing a mining of copper. This has been a fight that has been difficult, and that's why I would like to listen to this from first hand from Lucia. Okay. So, and the issues with technology. So, well, good morning to all of you. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Martha. Thank you for Pedro for this space, and to the whole network for allowing us to present this case of the Mocoa situation. Can you see the screen? Okay. So I'm going to tell you about large scale and medium sized metal mining, which is a threat for the Amazons and the Andean region. As you can see, this is a beautiful picture of the upstream in the Putumayo River. And this is very close to the Sibundoy Valley. And the downstream is the part where Mocoa is located as an Andean city, and in an Andean Amazonic city. This territory, as you can see in the map and the picture on the right, is a territory that is like a clouds factory, a factory of water that shows you the amount of hydric resources that we have. It is a multicultural and biodiverse territory, but it is also in a high risk of violence extractivism. This has been like this for because of the armed conflict, but now we are facing a situation of extractivism, and we are trying to stop the situation. The red little dot that you see down there in the map is where the Mocoa is located. Mocoa is the capital city of the Putumayo province in the southern part of Colombia, for those of you who don't know the place. So in Mocoa, as I told you, is called mountain Andean Amazonic mountains. And what we need to show you is that it is a network of life and that everything is interrelated, that there is nothing that is loose or something that does not make part of this ecosystem or that is outside the ecosystem. So we say that it's a ecosystemic, sorry, a strategic ecosystems, because it is uniting the Andean region with the Amazons, and it has conservation importance at the local, regional, national, and global levels. Uh, this becomes a connection not only ecosystemic but also regarding water. It affects the whole of the Amazons, all these water streams that are born in this upstream part of the mountains. On the other side, we talk about life, both flora and fauna. We have uh, it's over 3,900 species or types of animals or plants. Uh, and on the hand, regarding plants, we have 2,700 species and 150 bird species, 174 insect species, uh, 59 fish species, 58 mammals, and lizards, and snakes, and so the amount of diversity that is there is immense. And this is, of course, this upper part that I will show you all about mining later on, has a lot of orchids that have not even classified in the world. And they are already in risk of extinction without being recognized as existence. So the hydric wealth, we have the Rio Mocoa, the Mocoa River, and it has 21 micro streams, 8 rivers, and 13 rivulets in a very small area. Mocoa is a small municipality, it has a urban part, but of course it is surrounded by mountains in the rural area and of reserves, natural reserves. On the biocultural aspect, we have with 15 indigenous peoples, but only in Mocoa, there are 11 indigenous peoples from different communities that, for some reason, like displacement, they have been, or some other people who were born there, like the Kamsa in Putumayo. So there is a There are huge zones of indigenous reservations. We have also Afro-descendant community councils and a large number of peasants. So Putumayo, for those of you who know, is a territory that has been exploited by well, for many years because of the oil resources, but it is also a zone for a lot of armed conflict that has resulted in that most of the inhabitants in Mocoa are communities that are like victimized with triple manners because of the different actors and situations that are have affected them over the years. As an ecosystemic road, the blue dot is like the location, Mocoa location in this huge area that is Colombia, and there are a series of national natural parks that are surrounding Mocoa. Just a second, let me wear my glasses. For example, we have the National Park Doña Juana Cascabel. Now we're talking about territories that can talk about a region that takes part of the Nariño province. And in the closest area to Mocoa, we have the National Park Serranía de Churumbelo, the upstream zone that is a national reserve, the sanctuary of flora and fauna, Galeras in Nariño, and the Isles of the Corota. And in all this area, there is a sanctuary with medical medicine plants that are part of the Inga people. This is just to show you a little bit how Mocoa is a reference point and connection, but also surrounded by a large number of national reservations that at the moment is absolutely what it means life for the whole region and for the country and the world. Amongst others, we have some species like the mountains on the left, the bears, and some other bird species like hummingbirds and some others. Mocoa and Putumayo are getting really strong with bird watching because of the wealth that we have in this area. And this waterfall is something that characterizes our territory, is that we have the incredible amount of water that is present in the area. Just to show you a little bit, we have the hydric area here. You see how, regarding rivers and rivulets, we have the Afan River that sadly at the moment, as mentioned by Pedro, our rivers are polluted. The Afan River at the moment is a river where they receive all the dumped waste from garbage because they installed a garbage deposit for all the municipalities and Mocoas. And so there is no special treatment, and this is something just the garbage and the lixiviates from the river, whether the Conejo River, Mulato River, the Padoyaco, and Pino, San Martin, Rumillaco, San Goyaco, and the area. Some of these rivers, such as the Rumillaco, San Goyaco, and the rivulets that I mentioned here, like the Taruca, the Taruquita, are and were affected in something that I'm going to tell you about an avalanche. These were part of this natural catastrophe that we had. So just to show you a little bit how this map of Mocoa is completely irrigated, but lots of water source which is the ones that feed the Rio Mocoa. On the other hand, we also have in this map how many geological faults in the region. This territory has we go by the Churumelo fault. Each one of the dotted line is an indication of a fault, a geographic fault, and so you can see that the whole map. You can see that the whole territory is crossed by different faults that make it very vulnerable and very and susceptible to risks such as avalanche and like the one we had, and to have a great deal of mountains, particularly in the that is now being licensed for mining. They have like young or young mountains that are vulnerable to exploitation. And here is a picture is an image of what happened and the affectation with the avalanche. This avalanche happened on the 31st of March and the 1st of April. Around midnight, what I told you of the Ribo de Taruquita went directly to the Samboyaco River, and the Rio Mulato on the other side, more to the south of the city, because of intense rain. They flooded and generated a huge catastrophe. Basically they erased like 5 neighborhoods in the area of San Miguel, and families were left absolutely buried. So they talk about more over 300 people, but it is but so that's the official number. But there are a lot of the people that are left under the debris and were not found. 17 neighborhoods were affected, and the institutional response to this catastrophe has been corruption. It has been a lack of attention, and this is the second re-victimization, because I told you about a three-way. So the first one is displacement, armed conflict, and now they are re-victimized because of the corruption. So they have created a humanitarian and a community crisis in a large scale. Also, for 2018, after the tragedy, they decided there was a lot of pressure on the territory, and it is mainly the mega mining. Through a violation to the regulations, local regulations, they prohibited the municipal council or the city council with agreement 020 mandates that the municipality declares this area as a ecological patrimony, and therefore the agreement denies the possibility for large-scale and mid-size mining projects in Mocoa and Putumayo. This is something that has had a lot of people against this law. And also there was a special ordinance, the 4364, and that declared the Amazon as a subject of rights, or like a right owner. And therefore, this territory should be protected by this sentence. You have around 3 minutes to begin to close. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the social territorial conflict. There is a license that has been taken by Libero Copper, and there is these 4 titles or licenses that you see there. These 4 licenses are overlapped with the National Reserve of a river, and also with the indigenous reservations. So this is a very serious situation. The business that is present there wanted to have this exploration. Is a Canadian business. They are attempting to exploit around 511 million pounds of molybdenum and 4.6 billion pounds of copper. And we still don't have a protection at a national level for this possible exploitation. And as I mentioned before, uh, this is overlapping with some of the reserves, and this gives you an idea of where the company is planning to begin to affect and how the territory is biodiverse. These are like data on how the Anglo-Asian has begun to work in this space, and they have bought a lot of the stock of the Ibero, and now they are sitting at the board of directors in this company to make decisions on an Andean Amazonic territory. Just to close, we would like to say that among the applications, the legal demands that the National Mining Agency to Agreement 020 is against protection of a territory, and it also goes against a possible risk management. And these mining licenses also vulnerate the principles of precaution and prevention, environmental precaution. But they are also that regarding like a disaster like we had, it is really serious that they don't even consider the concept of precaution, and they go basically over any interest of a community when people are saying that you cannot have mining here. Also, exploration activities have violated the legal framework in Colombia because uh, business actually went against 8 environmental concepts about this. The Ministry of State has advanced in the previous consultation over the activities that are being developed at the moment, but this has not been completed. So this is basically the issue of the area of where the animals that I mentioned before, they require larger territory to be able to survive. And among the proposals that we have, I don't want to leave without saying that, is that we think that it is very important to continue supporting Acuerdos 020 from 2018 and to protect the ecological and cultural patrimony of the Mocoa municipality. We also think that the creation of a specialized research center in the Andean Amazon, because there are different interests in the territory, because this is a territory we demand to have studies on the fauna, flora, especially those that are in danger of extinction. In the geological part, to have studies on the faults and the pressures on the territory regarding continental plaques, and socioeconomic studies, and it is very important to give this territory to activate all the social territorial potential, the promotion of conservation areas, especially in with the species in danger of extinction, and the promotion of a research on medicine plants. Um, we also have a festival of water and life, and we think that this festival should continue. And that's what I'd like to continue to share with you that last year we had the second festival, and our species were the bear and the danta, and this time here are some pictures of this activity. We feel that to be able to begin to with acts of nonviolence, what we'd like to highlight is that the care and protection of this wealth, of natural wealth, we need to continue working with communities to secure a good living. We are getting to a point, to a turning point, and our hope is that we will be able to uh, defend the water and the territory and life in this area, in the Andean Amazonic area. And we believe that we can do more to continue protecting the Amazon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lucia. what you're saying is so interesting that we would like to continue listening to you and all the efforts that you're putting into trying to stop this crazy advancement um, that attempts to destroy the natural beauty, the people, and the natural wealth and biodiversity. Lucia has shown us how this network of life, this ecosystemic network, it's been threatened. Deforestation, the oil mining continue to advance, destroying everything. And regarding this, we have the task of making these people respect the law and to guarantee continuity of this living in harmony with other beings and human rights with humans with nature to bring back this utopia of living together that original and ancestral peoples are promoting, and that are also a source of spirituality. Thank you, Lucia, for sharing this idea of life and the fights that are happening in Mocoa, Putumayo. Thank you, Pedro. Our pleasure. Now we're going to move on to another experience. Not but without not but before that, I'd like to say that this conversation of knitting hope is part of the Laudato. They talk about the initiatives of from the Salam and the Interior Commission for the SADC are promoting a series of events like a road, a roadmap of a reflection, a proposal writing, with the purpose of move from all the different spaces where the norms are being discussed for the protection of the environment, as for example the COPs, the protection about the forest, and we're ready to participate in COP 16 in Cali, and then in COP 30 in Brazil, to take these demands and these proposals to take alternatives to be discussed, because we are not against progress of our peoples, but we would want to propose is progress, but respecting Mother Earth and nature and the people that live in there, and respecting the lives not only of human beings but all other beings, of the rivers, of the forests, of the Andean bear, the danta, and all the other animals that we have in these ecosystems. This is not only the defense of Mocoa, the Amazon, but it is the defense of the planet. And for that reason, I think it is important to say that having all of you from different places is so important. Now we're going to go to Brazil at the moment. Brazil, earth of martyrs, of territories that have been also martyrized, where the people resist, where we have people in emergencies, extinguishing the mudas, all of the other people, indigenous people that and wide zones that have been affected and on the road to extermination because of extractivism. We're going to contact now with the CPT in Brazil, and here we have Mr. Diaz Suarez. They have been accompanying a series of activities of resistance, and they're going to explain to us one of these cases. And Inés, the floor is yours. Good afternoon again. I'd like to say hello, Alejandro, all the people who are hearing this conversation. At the beginning, I just a little bit of the context of this topic. While I had some issues connecting, but now I think we can talk about our story here in our community. I I sent a video, Alejandro. I don't know if you have it there. Yeah, if you can talk now or okay. So the video is here, and there, polluted water, animals that are deforestation, exploitation, attempts to uh, uh, for lands and threats, death threats are some of the most important impacts of a long list that the families in this area have to live exposed to. And the state of Bahia, uh, particularly in Campo Alegre, in the neighboring communities, with the larger municipality. The lives in these communities was being interrupted by the different activities of mining. Now they began to affect and torment the peaceful life of their inhabitants. Peasants began to increase their uh, this has this region has an ancestor a background in this community, and that's how the community began to grow. In 1930, there was my grandfather was living here for a long time. My father lived here because all the kids and here. So this cage here is a place where we used to play. But this began to affect all the plantations, and then they said, "What are we going to be doing now if we don't have a space for planting?" Uh, So in this parish of San Jose, and the neighboring communities uh, has been affected in different ways. Uh, uh, this has been an area that has a lot of faith and has been working in, with celebrating spiritually the development of the town, but particularly has been affected now because of the appearance of mining projects. For us, it was like something that we really wanted to have. Everything was so calm. Everything was very quiet, and all the workers were working very well. You can grow pigs and animals and basic plants. But then when they began to implement mining, all of these things disappeared. My home before my house, when they came here to have this mining, they didn't care about our situation. They began to enter to my house without asking for permission. What is this about? Oh no, there's nothing wrong. It's totally okay. Don't worry. It's something they were trying to do, but then nothing was going to happen. But the people didn't think that there was something wrong there. When people began to see, the people began to see that there were people working and beginning to dig. Uh, they have basically three tasks. Um, so they began to pay people 200 reais. Um, so this was an opportunity just to give a little bit of understanding of our situation in the community so that you can see the dynamics of living. So this business galvanic that arrived in the community, this mining between 2005 to 2009, they began with the process of exploitation of phosphates. In reality, the great majority of the people are part of councils, and when they came here, there was an investment because when they discovered that the area, despite the fact that we were not registered, they discovered a form of documenting illegally in our territories. So this happening only in this, in not only in this community, but in also in other communities. These are eight communities that have no longer a peaceful life because of this hoarding of land and this displacement and how this when they discovered the potential of our lands. So there was an enemy that entered into our homes. We heard testimonies from different people. We saw that in the video, watched that in the video, that whenever you have a chance to watch the whole video, you're going to see that the situation in our community was a very serious one. We have a large biodiversity, and the way in which this was destroyed is absolutely complicated. But thank God we managed to minimize all of these things despite the threats, because practically families we live together, or we live totally under threat, particularly if you're an environmental defender. The company wants to expand more, but the moment they can't expand their operations, because now we have a space for our animals, farm animals, and the beautiful landscape was destroyed. A place where people used to go for a picnic. Now those spaces for community were destroyed completely, and today we live with the threats of expansion of the company. Sometimes not in a direct form, but in an indirect way, but through this way of expanding the territories. Recently, we had a killing attempt where some families were threatened with gunmen. Three people were wounded, representatives from associations, from a community. We got to a point where we saw mining was when they use any kind of means whenever they don't achieve what they want in order to de-articulate or affect the communities that are resisting them. The difficulty that we had is that we were so threatened because we are in a community for over 200 years with our families. Our families have like a background for 200 years. When mining came here, they didn't allow us to stay in the territories. But thank God, our organization, uh, through the CPT, managed to, with the ecological mapping, where we could identify the resources that we had, but that sometimes we didn't realize that we had. And also the issue of the people who were coming from outside and who were aliens to our community, and we were able to identify people who were involved in the threats through the work and with a lot of fights that we gave with the support of CPT of a parish. This situation led us to uh, with the communities to set up strategies to stay in the territories, because many people had just given up, and they said that they couldn't fight against so powerful people. But from the moment that we began to do this, we began to fight. We got organized, and we learned how to give value to our territories, our things, and things began to change in our favor. We got organized, and in many cases, we went to the people's ombudsman, and we told them about the damages that have been produced by mining and the owning of the territories, and how that affected our farm animals and the plantations. And many people wanted to leave the community, but thank God, together with the MP, in every audience that we had, sorry, in every hearing that we had, we have been able to have some gains. And that's how we have shown other people and other regions that yes, it is possible to fight and to stay firm in the fight, and to, because if we don't resist this first impact, if we could begin to close. What we want is a support that give voices to our vindications, and so that we can stay in the territories, and that we can maintain our communities in a peaceful manner as we used to live before, together with our allies. Thank you very much, Inés. This is the call for the community work and the CPT, this international solidarity. Thank you very much. So now we're going to see how the position of our territories in that land is different, different from the attempts of the governments and the businesses, the transnational companies that come here and just want to attack voraciously without taking care of the local people and other ways of living. This vocation of the land is for the defense of biodiversity. And this is very important because when we talk about the land as human beings, as we have a vocation, the land has its own vocation, and that we need to help recuperate. The land that is a right owner. It is something that we need to begin to discuss and to recognize in different spaces. So the third presenter has to do with this, with the legal fights, with the fight for the rights that we are developing in the continent and Latin America. There is energetic metrics in Latin America and the Caribbean. And there is legislation that is being created at the local, national, and international levels that help us and that we need to use in our daily living and in our daily fights. And obviously, to get deeper into this So Amanda Romero is the expert in human rights and businesses, and she's going to tell us more about this to be able to understand why the situation and what are the roads that we can use in the most legal part in to advance in the defense of human rights and the rights of nature. Amanda, please, if you can continue. Thank you very much, Pedro. Good morning to all of you. It is a pleasure to share with you the picture. I took it in 2018, the Salar de Uyuni, one of the salares that is most important that was formed 15 million years ago at the height of 4,500 meters over sea level, where there is at the moment one of the largest mines of copper in the world. So this takes me to the presentation on how we have been working for 3 decades of regulations of what is called the climate change, which in reality for us is uh, climate crisis, as mentioned the two previous presenters. But we find, first of all, that in 1992, in the Rio summit, they signed 5 international documents. One of those 5 international documents, that are treaties, that are binding treaties, is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change that provides this definition: a change in climate attributed directly or indirectly to human activity that alters the composition of the global atmosphere and that adds to the natural variability of climate observed over comparable periods of time. In South America and Latin America, we have the situation of El Niño, which means dry season, and the Niña phenomenon, which is the rainy season. Those cycles that are normal and natural of a climate related to with the Humboldt cold stream in the Pacific and with the cyclone and tropical storms in the Caribbean has been altered because of human activity. So this call from this framework made us from 1988. We created a panel of experts, international experts, that began to analyze the climate crisis and how the climate in the world began to raise. And it is something that we talk about the energetic matrix, that is the sources of energy in Latin America and the Caribbean. Our national energy consumption in Latin America is mainly coming from hydroelectric power plants, as mentioned by the Inter-American Defense of the Environment and the Global Water Watch and other organizations. And the problem of the hydroelectric in the global south, particularly in tropical zones, is that it generates many more greenhouse effects like methane and carbon are also generated by hydroelectric, which have meant the forced displacement of thousands of families from indigenous peoples, the Afro-descendants and peasants, because they have flooded the best agricultural lands to build the hydroelectric plants. Another part of our energy consumption comes from carbon, gas, and oil. Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, and Venezuela, together with Argentina, are countries that are producing petrol and gas, natural gas, as well as Bolivia. Bolivia is exporting gas to Argentina, and Colombia is the first country in Latin America to export coal that is being sold to Chile, Puerto Rico, and other countries in the region. And we also have thermoelectric plants too. So what is the problem with this matrix, the extractivism of coal, of gas, and on oil, that is the fossil fuels, depend on the it provides most of the income for our economies. So particularly in Venezuela, Guyana, Brazil, Mexico, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, and Bolivia and Argentine produce also large economic income in royalties and in income whereby most of the expenses are covered in our countries. This also means that changing this matrix to avoid the global warming depend on the global north countries that are the first consumers of energy in the world. The United States, China, and the Western countries in Europe are the ones that consume the highest number of those fossil fuels, but also produce more greenhouse effect gases. So in our situation, Latin America is critical because on one side we need energy, but on the other hand, we also need resources. In that manner, our governments have privileged or promoted the possibility of extracting oil, and at the moment, we have a very interesting example in the case of Guyana. Guyana is projected to become one of Latin America's top oil producers. You can see the potential where Guyana is this red line that is going higher. But what we're going to see is that Guyana is a country of 1 million people, and the income from because of oil from the neighboring countries are creating new conflicts. For example, if we compare these numbers that are presented by America's carbon, where Guyana is, they have much more production of oil per capita. Per capita, it means a large crisis because at the end of the chart is 260. The production that is being held in Guyana is produced in the sea, and it is affecting the sea bottom. So we are going to have two businesses there. The Shell company and the Exxon are the ones that are leading one conflict between Guyana and Venezuela because of a territory in dispute that is called the Essequibo territory. In that sense, we see that fuel fossil fuels are generating violence against defenders of the territories, of the environment, the human rights. In the case of frontline defenders, the organization that defend defenders and the first liners indicate that 4 out of 5 killings of human rights defenders occurred in Latin America in 2023. This is indicated by the recent report by the Organization for Frontline Defenders, reports 300 cases, of which 237 took place in Latin America, mainly in Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, followed by Brazil and Honduras. Frontline Defenders also highlights that violence in the world has many affected the social and environmental defenders of indigenous peoples. This group lost 92 of its leaders and inhabitants in Brazil, Colombia, the Amazon, mainly in Colombia, in the Andean region, and the Amazonian, and in Ecuador, in Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Paraguay, and Peru, where this country, they have just killed another indigenous leader who was against narco traffic and what is doing lumber for the production of cocaine. There are other cases in Indonesia and the Philippines. Regarding environmental and territorial leadership, that is, people who are non-indigenous Afro-descendants, 64 people were killed in Brazil, Colombia, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, and Peru, in addition to India and the Philippines. For this situation, the question that we have here is, what are we going to do when we have an international instrument that has been ratified by 15 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is called the Escazú Agreement. The Escazú comes from the Costa Rica, where this agreement was signed. of the right to participation of the populations and the people and the access to information and the protection of human rights defenders. The map that I show you here, the map from Ecuador, which includes all the mega mining projects, they overlap again those mining conflicts with the social conflicts today in a country that is also going through situations of narco traffic and drug dealing. So we begin to see, as the Holy Father says, that social conflicts are directly associated with the elites of power and technocracy that tell us, for example, that we can have high-level technical tech mining, which is a huge lie with a facing a difficult situation. At the moment, we are expecting the international opinion from the International Court of Human Rights. The governments of Chile and Colombia have requested the court to produce a document which said a document to explain between the climate crisis and human rights. So what specifically the Inter-American Court thinks about the things that governments have to do in order to protect their population? Because as I told you, the main impact of climate crisis is being experienced by the south, countries in the global south. Most of the coastal and Andean and also insular countries like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic, and Haiti, plus the smaller islands in the Caribbean and the Antilles are going to be underwater. They're going to disappear if the temperature continues rising and if the poles continue to melt and the temperature increases and the volume of water is going to cover everything. But simultaneously, I would like for us to be clear, simultaneously, we have this extractivism, oil and extractivism projects in the region in Latin America. The countries that signed the Escazú Agreement were 24, but not all of them have ratified it. This year, they approved a protocol for the protection of human rights defenders within the Escazú Agreement. The Escazú Agreement does not appear from the Inter-American system of human rights. On the contrary, it appears as a development line of the United Nations Development Plan for this regional plan, which is the CEPAL, the Economic Council for Latin America. It is actually from CEPAL the Escazú appears. So one of the questions that we have at the moment is how we're going to make the Escazú agreement once that it is ratified in Chile, in Colombia, and Mexico, in Uruguay, where it is already ratified. How is it going to be decided that the decision on the conflicts on access to information, protection to defenders have to be taken at a national level? Because there is no instance, Latin American instance for decision making regarding violations of respect to the Escazú Agreement. For that reason, we are proposing to begin to work this relationship with the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, which is the instrument that is the closest on the regulatory framework under the American Convention of Human Rights, to which we have access all the people in Latin America. So this is very important because, in addition, this exists or has existed for over 8 years. There is a joint conflict of the Office of Human Rights, High Commissioner of Human Rights, and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights for the protection of defenders. Additionally, we find a mechanism that is extraordinary, an urgent and immediate response mechanism within the program of the United Nations for Environment, PNUMA. So through an email, we can transmit or send information in emergency situations on threats, risks of environmental damage or attacks against human rights defenders, as well as to the procedures, specific procedures of the Council of Human Rights of the United Nations. So we have a framework, institutional framework, and legal framework at the international level that protect us additional to the actions of litigation at the national level that we have been working on. So what are the new challenges? They have said that it is very important to on the environmental line, defense that needs to have aeolic and solar energies. What is the problem of these energies at the moment? Most of them are of these projects are located to replace the use of fossil fuel energies. So it is a vicious circle where, for example, an oil company is installing solar energy to say that now it is sustainable, or that a mining, like for example, Antofagasta in Chile, is making use of aeolic energy, and that's how they say that they are helping to counteract the climate crisis. But additionally, in Mexico, Guatemala, and Colombia, and Peru, they are installing solar parks and aeolic parks in indigenous and peasant territories, but their owners are uh, private companies and companies that are hoarding lands. This is not community energy. This is not. So the question is, who needs this energy? In reality, it is a transition for the companies themselves, for fuel fossil companies, for transnational companies, with a negative role of Spaniard companies, and also companies from Italy like Enel and Iberdrola or Renova from Spain, but also the companies from the United States, IAES, which are developing these projects to present themselves as clean energy companies. Additionally, based on the request from Germany, they began to see other alternatives for the transition of energies. Some of them that are very negative for the environment and for the ancestral peoples and native people. They are talking, for example, that in the Amazon of purchasing carbon credits or bonds with an argument that says, I am compensating because I am polluting. So an airline, for example, like Delta Airlines, buys carbon bonuses to an indigenous people in Colombia. They continue using the polluting fuel for their airplanes, and they say they are compensating for that pollution. So as we say colloquially, if you sin and pray, then you break even. In that sense, the relations with the wooded areas and jungles and the ones that are processing carbon are affecting indigenous peoples and intermediaries, and they are being also affected by intermediaries. Normally, private companies, national companies, in the case of Colombia, uh, people who are not indigenous, who are getting benefits from the great amount of money that is being offered by these transnational companies. And they also talk about green hydrogen upon the request of Germany. And green hydrogen is not a green hydrogen that is produced with hydrolysis, and that it could help process an alternative different from the fossil fuels, but also in Colombia, Brazil, they are using it. Um, they are using fossil fuels to produce green hydrogen for Germany mainly, for the purpose of helping those transition energies. But we're going to see that the main source of pollution is not the people, individuals, and homes. Pope Francisco has been calling for an ecological transformation and how we fight the consumerism. But it is also important to highlight here that the main polluters are national and international transnational companies. That's why at the national level, since 2018, they need to have due due diligence laws at the national level. That is, development of mining legislation and their limitations and possibilities for victims of human rights violations in the business context. There are some proposals In Peru, the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights has a specific clause that proposes the need to create a law within Peru. But also, we know, as Pedro mentioned, that there are 10 million people in Peru, especially infants and women, that are affected by heavy metals. A law that has not been possible because in the recent years, as we know, has had some presidents and a high level of corruption, including amnesty laws for human rights violators and less crimes of lesser humanity. In Brazil, there is a bill on due diligence that is also combined with what they call the dirty list, which puts together all the companies where they are using slavery and the violation of human rights, the violation of against nature. And in Colombia, there is a bill that is being discussed to regulate and control companies be going beyond due diligence. Due diligence, that is, that they are according to the law. We know that the laws in Latin America have been flexibilized to allow for more violations of human rights violations and to avoid controls uh, in the factibility studies and analysis stage. In that sense, we find also that there are laws in Europe and France. There is a law that is due diligence in digital and so on, that analyzes human rights situations for businesses of over 5,000 employees. They talk about the human rights and environment, and they also include their providers and contractors, and also they have a legal responsibility, uh, and that is they can have they can offer a monetary compensation for damages. So there's one case in Mexico. The same case in Germany. We have that companies for over 1,000 employees, and since last year for 3,000. There are two agreements on human rights and environment that includes all the supply chains, but they also have admin level sanctions. This is not so strong. For example, in the case of Holland, we have 50. So just to show you quickly that the European Union approved a directive on human rights to diligence in supply chains, and the problem is that they are going to start since 2020 to 27, and some cases to 2028 and 2029. So that is to say, 2 years or more without that law. For that reason, the whole road in the supply chain directive has not been the most positive one um, because of a possibility of influencing, particularly in the European Parliament, is not present because at the moment we explain these topics that human rights are being discussed at the council. Uh, they have been discussing these topics as until we don't have this law being enforced. So what we need to do is we have to enforce the idea of environmental justice. What is environmental justice? What does it mean to have a fair and just transition against the destruction of biodiversity? We are talking about climate change and the need for intergenerational justice, not only for us at the moment, but also for boys and girls that are going to be the future people who are going to be in the earth. From a Latin American perspective, so we have some advocacy and mobilization actions, uh, as pointed out as Pedro Escobar. He says that we have to work in the ecological field to reduce the loss of biodiversity and deforestation of the forest. It also includes the rights of uh,
This includes the right of communities to ecological and cultural appropriate socio-economic strategies centered on well-being, and socially to ensure respect to the rights of communities, including the rights to their territories, at the political level for the protection of ethnic territorial organizations, the integrity of the lives and their leaders, and the strengthening of the forms of government of the communities and their communities and their autonomy. In the cultural aspects to guarantee the conditions for the exercise of identity and cultural presence of Black and Indigenous communities. Just to finish, saying that environment is a human right that has been recognized from the United Nations, that we need to see not only the quality of water and soil and air, but also the availability of food, understanding that human rights are universal and they are indivisible and interdependent and interrelated, and that the Office of the High Commission on Human Rights has been working on that line, and that there is a special rapporteur at the moment, who is from Colombia, Sue Puentes from Colombia, who on human rights and the environment, plus the special rapporteurs on the toxic dumpings and dangerous and the components of a party. So in conclusion, minerals that are needed uh, to produce electric vehicles, batteries for energy, solar energy or like lithium, copper, cobalt, magnesium, and nickel, and the zinc are worsening the environmental crisis in Latin America. Fossil fuels will continue to be a key source of revenue for governments in the region to the detriment of human rights. The human rights to a healthy environment, water, and the territory of indigenous peoples, our descendants and peasants will be the most affected, and the European Parliament, unfortunately, resulted in a triumph of political positions that ignore the climate crisis. And the same thing can happen in the United States if Donald Trump wins elections. For that reason, we continue having the need to continue working, hope in those fights from Latin America and the Caribbean based on solidarity, reciprocity, and in the exchange of seeds and in the exchange of peasants, exchange and indigenous markets and the well-living and the respect of human rights and the Mother Earth. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amanda. You give us a very clear illustration that despite this crisis that we are experiencing at the moment, there are reasons for hope. And the construction of norms and policies. They are like protective shelters to guarantee better living standards in relation to nature. You also suggest some tasks. The need, for example, to include in this roadmap the importance of the Escazú agreement, implementation of this agreement, of is respect to the ratification and approval by different countries, but also at an international level, how the due diligence laws in Europe is taking longer in each one of the countries, are producing local legislation. And obviously, the reasons for hope presented by Inés and Lucía from the territories, from the communities, strengthens resistance, strengthening the experiences, alternative experiences, and as mentioned by the call for international solidarity with the communities that sometimes, because they are so far away, they are invisible. They are not given visibility at the national and international levels. And that's the largest word or task Christi and the CELAC and the organizations that are in Europe and the United States and Canada are making those efforts to coordinate and give visibility and of advocacy. Alejandro has been not only in the technical part, but he has also been taking notes of the key ideas that have been presented today. So Alejandro, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Pedro. And I'd like to be brief so as to allow for some more participation and comments that you may have. Uh, but I'd like to thank again SELEC, the Integral Committee as part of SLM, for their participation in this webinar cycle that attempts to promote provide the voices of the communities and the experts that are working in favor of human rights and nature rights regarding these affectations. Also, I'd like to thank the articulation, the CLAC, that have provided a platform whereby you can find this information and resources and the slides for today's presentations. And also to thank participants. Thank you, Lucia and Amanda. I'd like to highlight some specific points, as you may have seen. The communities that resist extractivist projects in the framework of these processes have uh, invited us to continue to find memory, and this has taken us to have this historical legacy of the inhabitants in the territories, and in that sense, not necessarily from the ancestors, but also from animals and the fauna flora that are in the territories, particularly Mocoa, in like the bear and the downtown, other species that are living and that also help have this ecosystemic balance. To highlight also the importance of the connectivity of these ecosystemic connections. Lucia mentioned this. Everything is connected. And it is also very important to have this as a premise to be able to go deeper into this framework of working on the integral ecology. On the other side, the context of extractivism has requested communities, institutions, and human rights defense organizations to face this historical moment to be able to construct new ways of resistance and advocacy and legal litigation for the defense of human rights and nature. I think that it is important to highlight here the search for those memoirs, for that story, for that biocultural balance, to continue finding those different community organization systems to be able to be rooted in their territories, to be able to connect with the territories, and to strengthen those ways of inhabiting and coexisting, as Inés mentioned, the wealth of these sacred places like the cage and some other forms of agriculture and of farm animals or inhabiting that are not in connection with those demands or requests of production of energy or the creation of capitalism um, environment, capitalist production. And finally, to highlight from Amanda's presentation, the need to know more about the institutional mechanisms, legal mechanisms on which we can advance in the protection of human rights and nature. Uh, in the CIDH, there is a lot of advancement and a need to articulate with the Escazú Agreement that has been a reivindication of the environmentalist movements and human rights defenders to precisely have the implementation of Article 11, if I'm not wrong, of the Rio Declaration, and to strengthen the right of access to information, to participation and environmental justice, and how these three are connected. There cannot be participation without protection. And when justice is requested, the judiciary mechanisms in each nation have to be aligned and ready and capable of understanding and giving the right responses to the requests from the communities, and to also know the technical impacts and the socio-ecologic impacts of extractivist projects. And finally, fortunately, in the geopolitics, energetic geopolitics, there is a huge challenge in Guyana, in the zone of Essequibo, which implies for us the understanding of energetic transition in its wider dimensions. There is a political debate, but there is also a need to talk about this capitalist matrix as a generator of commodities. That is, although we are discussing the transition, the energy transition, they are worsening this by insisting in exploiting oil resources in areas where there could be ecological affectations. So it is very important to think about energetic transition where oil exploitation has to be questioned and to damage a natural reserve like the reserve of Essequibo and in other places. So as a conclusion, I think that it is important from these spaces to harmonize uh, the reading and the sense of the communities, so that these debates can be more heartfelt. And sometimes we get into the lack of hope because of the things that are happening, because as a participant of a community in resistance, when you see that all these actors don't acknowledge or don't recognize the needs of the communities, and it becomes a political rational debate. What we really want to do here is to break this lack of hope, to need and for the construction of hope, to see how communities amongst those situations continue to resist, as mentioned our presenter in a webinar last year. This multipolar world, there are other realities that are there in the realities that are also generating forms of inhabiting and resisting that are really important to analyze and to share. So thank you very much, Lucía, Barbosa, Inés, Amanda Romero, and to all of you for participating in today's event. I'm going to open the microphone for Pedro in case he wants to close with some final remarks. Yeah, just to be able to match with the agreement that we had with 1 hour and 30 minutes. Yeah, the requests is from people that to see if they're gonna be sharing. So yeah, I see here that you already put the link for the video, and everybody's interested in having the PowerPoint presentations that you had today to make them available to everybody here and to all the people. I don't see any other questions. Let me see. So I don't see. Okay, good. I just included the link in the chat, which is the link for the platform that has been provided to us. And we're going to be updating this platform with all the materials, the documents and materials that were analyzed today. So you can find you can have access to these resources. And this webinar is also located in Facebook in Christi. And so if you want, please share this video with your members of your institutions and other networks, and publish them to continue going deeper into these kinds of topics that are so important and so urgent. I'd like just to close, invite you to our next webinar. This is for August the 9th. This webinar, this is going to be over in November, but the next one, which is our fourth session, will take place. The topic will be integral ecology, spiritualities for living in harmony. So don't miss it. We have tried to make these webinars that we do on Friday can be related with a specific theme of that could be for advocacy or in a particular day. And in this particular day, it will be related to the Day of Indigenous Peoples, which is the 9th of August. So that you can schedule this in your agendas. And so we'll be sharing later on the link and the agenda for that day. I just to add briefly from what Amanda said, that from Colombia we can regulate and control the co-optation of institutions in the spaces of those extractivists that are coming to the territories. Because in our case, the governors and the mayor of the city uh, have been promoting spaces for mining companies and other populations. So for us, it's unacceptable that the National Mining Agency has sued Agreement 020 that protects and attempts to protect Mocoa as a biocultural patrimony. I don't understand why the official institution is against the possibility of development of peoples and the conservation of territories from the decisions that autonomously communities could have. And the same thing happened with previous consultation. It became a requirement as list ticking, but it's not related to the fact that the decisions made by the communities have to be respected, and that sometimes communities are co-opted so that they can have the authority, the local authority, sign the licenses and apparently to fulfill the law. So I think that something need to appear in Colombian regulations to be able to control this. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Nelson, for your comment on the carbon bonuses. In fact, this has been a lot of people who are taking advantage. They are and some corrupt leaders in the indigenous groups for carbon bonuses. It is something that calls for the global north and how we experience this in the global south. It is important to have this clarity, and there are many other topics, obviously, but one of the elements, the core elements, is how to balance in an equitable manner the strengthening of local autonomies and popular autonomies versus the work of advocacy at the international level. In Brussels, New York, in the Conference of Parts on biodiversity and on environment. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So, Mother Superior, if you would like to start. So thank you very much. It's been a very interesting conversation. Thank you, Pedro, for your generosity. This is a committee of a lot of affection and a lot of work and of sharing, as I said, in the network with heart feeling. So today we have used our heart about the challenges that we're facing in this model, but also in the hope for communities such as Hilos de Vida and the community of Edelson and some other communities that are resisting from the creativity, from the innovation, and from eco-spirituality. So thank you very much. We'll continue walking, and we'll see you next in the next webinar. Thank you to all of you, and